Hi, my name is Jerome Perez, Regulatory Operations Specialist 2 at Certara, Philippines. I've been working in the publishing industry for almost 10 years now, with 2.5 years at CPI as Regulatory Operations Specialist. This is my first regulatory company, even though I've been working in the publishing industry in the past 10 years of my life. And I've learned so much and continuing to grow ever since I've been hired here during pandemic era. I'm humbled and honored to be speaking at high platforms like RAPS in a matter of less than 3 years of work I've done here at Certara. I want to thank my mentors, leaders, colleagues, both at CPI and US, for giving me this honor to present what I've been doing as Regulatory Operations Specialist at Certara. Today, I will present to you the advantages of engaging ahead, how partnership and collaboration enable eCTD submission publishing success. Also, thank you so much to our client Advaxis for partnering this webinar with Certara. It's an honor to co-lead this client together with my senior Reg Ops specialist teammate, Chris Dryka, and I've been handling their account since I got here. During this webinar, we will show you how Certara regulatory operations specialists were able to partner and collaborate with Advaxis. We'll be having 4 agendas for this webinar, consisting of number 1, eCTD composition. Number 2, challenges of eCTD, which means electronic common technical document publishing. Number 3, case study I've done ever since I work here at Certara in handling Advaxis Incorporated. Number 4, benefits of partnering with regulatory publishing experts. And number 5, we will have the conclusions. And hopefully, for our regulatory experts and interested audience attending here, will have the ideas and learn on how we handle regulatory submissions at Certara successfully. We got 1 hour and we'll try to squeeze in as much as possible and answer questions after the presentation. First, we will talk about what are the eCTD compositions. What are they made of? What are the agencies around the globe that uses this kind of material for a company like Advaxis to be successfully submit their studies application? Next slide. eCTD is the spinal cord of a human body, if I will describe it in the most simplest way. Without this, a study application will not push through. Metadata, in the case of eCTD submission, refers to the structured data. The role of metadata will likely be expanded with future versions of eCTD, as eCTD version 4 is implemented and potentially impacts identification of medicinal products on structured product labeling. In helping clients with their regulatory operations and electronic publishing needs, I'm often asked about preparing regulatory submissions in the electronic common technical document format. While a lot of us have been working in the eCTD format for many years, new startup companies focusing on rare disease and technologies to treat patients are often surprised by the regulatory hurdles. The submission of a marketing application is seen as a key milestone in the long development process. People unfamiliar with the regulations, specifically eCTD requirements, can be caught off guard as their NDA submission date approaches. The NDA medical writers and regulatory affairs leads have not prepared their documents for the eCTD publishing stage, and now they realize that documents needs to be rewritten to match the eCTD granularity and hyperlinking requirements. So let's first take a high-level look at the eCTD, which contains 5 modules. As you can see on my screen, we've broken it down into 5 modules, which consists of a typical marketing application includes hundreds of thousands of pages of regulatory documents across more than 1,000 individual files that can be climbed into the millions of pages if a significant number of large case reports are included, which some key documents will not be finalized until the end of the project. For example, here, the module 2 summarize, for example, most files to be included in the submission are usually finalized sooner, and some of them are likely available for publishing now, such as non-clinical study reports. The first step is to get your submission documentation into the format specified by eCTD templates. Regulatory and medical writing teams usually write all the financials and non-clinical studies in content templates that format everything according to the eCTD regulations. These eCTD authoring templates should be used for any report plan for regulatory filing, no matter how far the submission may be. Once the documentation is in correct format, the content should be approved by the subject matter experts as well as regulatory operations. Once approved, it's transferred to the publishing team who starts the submission. Compilation, that this involves creating PDF files, adding navigation aids, bookmarks, and hypertext links, and uploading it into the online eCTD publishing software. Once the publishing team has performed the process, the eCTD files and sections should be reviewed again by the subject matter experts. On the next slide, I will show you what are the data standards in drug life cycle that differentiate usage of eCTD. Here on the left chart shows us all the data standards that enables FDA scientists to explore many research questions by combining data from multiple studies. In the right chart indicates what are the studies. For example, IND, NDA, BLA, ANDA during discovery, investigational, application review phases, and post-marketing surveillance. On the next slide, we will talk about what are the eCTD rationale that implements the agencies around the globe. For example, agencies like FDA, EMA, and PMDA compile eCTD submissions, and we are confident enough at Certara can meet the organization's goal. We will now move with our second agenda on this webinar, discussing what are the challenges of eCTD publishing. What are the usual stress factors of regulatory operations specialists like me, like how to resolve these challenges up to date? Are these challenges help me grow during my work at Certara as regulatory operations specialist? Here, I will show you what are the top 4 challenges that I think, at least made in my perspective as a regulatory specialist, that are critical enough during submission progress. I've listed 4. So top of my list is the missing eCTD table of contents. ETOC to me is very important in every submission that client needs to have. Some of my clients at Certara do provide this type of document during submission publishing sequence, but some clients don't. Thankfully, our client at Advaxis always get to provide this type of document that enable us regulatory operations specialists to identify 5 critical parts. Number 1, what is the turnaround time of a sequence submission process? Number 2, it will identify what are the correct leaf titles, file names, application sequence numbers, submission types. Number 3, how many documents does this sequence have? Number 4, how long should I spend bandwidth hours on this sequence? And lastly, what are the correct section folders in operational attribute? We at Certara have regulatory operations teams that are experts with a deep understanding that work across the entire submissions lifecycle. So even if sometimes client didn't able to provide this type of documents, we always assure you that it won't stop the study submission to be processed. Number 2 on the list is the tight turnaround deadlines, including rush submission. As a co-lead of Advaxis, I've experienced it myself that most of their submissions were built on a rush rates that I think we always handled properly, because we got accelerated round-the-clock operations with teams in Asia Pacific, Europe, and North America. This is huge advantage that Certara can offer because not all regulatory companies can offer you this kind of service. Third on the list, we will discuss issues like corrupted files and software malfunction. I cannot speak generally when it comes to other regulatory companies. I can only speak in behalf of what I experienced while working at Certara department in regulatory, that the software we use, Global Submit, that I'll be also talking about later about my case study with Advaxis. A brief introduction with Global Submit is it features three factions of management submissions composing of publish, review, and web review. Last challenge that I listed is how the convenient it will take for a client like Advaxis to review or oversee their submission progress. Here at Certara, we use simplified anytime and anywhere submissions review cloud power web-based, hosted called web review. So you don't have to figure out downloading application in order to track the progress of your submission, proven and tested on all operating systems and browsers. On the next slide, I will show you what is the sample of eCTD TOC. Like Advaxis provided us, as you can see here, we can oversee 100 pages submission document that will allow us regulatory specialists to figure out how many bandwidth hours should this sequence take. On here, we're running like at around 102, and the type of submission is the SUR. On our third agenda, I will present to you the case study that I provide at Advaxis, and I will show you what are the challenges as their CPI co-lead faced during their submission application. Advaxis Incorporated was found on year 1987 at Princeton, New Jersey, that goes to develop cancer immunotherapies that teaches the body to recognize tumor as a threat. The average response rate of cancer patients to immunotherapy drugs is between 20 to 50%. So that's kind of half of what the numbers they're doing. While immunotherapy is not beneficial for all types of cancers, the success achieved indicates that it does have a positive impact on cancer patients, and it do saves lives. I enlisted 3 main challenges that I faced and successfully resolved during processing of Advaxis application submissions. Number 1 on the list, rush submissions that include multiple hyperlinks given in a short turnaround time. With Certara's scalability to meet changing requirements and timelines, we can assure you that rush submissions will be processed accordingly. Here is an illustration showing you how we turn over projects on our office locations globally. It will start in North America, where most of our clients are based, and going to be turned over to us here at CPI. This is something we're proud of because it's built foundation for us regulatory operations specialists to endure heavy workloads and tight deadline submissions. Number 2 on the list is the last minute content changes that can be quite critical on a submission. For example, is a client provided a module 5 80 pages protocol document that needs modification. This is not always happening, but it can increase up to 150 pages document. So we need to reprocess that. In order for from start to finish again, and we have the insights on how to organize your documents to facilitate easier post-approval updates. Third on the list is how we handle large submissions using our Global Submit software. On the next slide, I will show you the interesting event wherein a client of ours implemented Certara Global Submit submission software for their eCTD submissions, and they got nothing praised but after doing that. They have become more efficient. Hyperlinks and bookmarks are seamlessly created, and quality check is performed quickly, eliminating the risk of technical rejections. On our next slide, I will show you the full roadmap on how we do business here at Certara Department, Regulatory Operations. As you can see, after our clients send us the final documents through cloud-based application, we will process it on a document level if needed, or sometimes go straight to the submission level processing, and it turnovers to sponsor review. And if not right the first time we perform it well, the sponsor will notify us with a signal wherein we can submit the sequence to FDA gateway. Here's the breakdown about the software that we use, naming Global Submit. This is the elaboration of functions. This is the elaboration functions that we use on a daily basis on our lives as a regulatory operations specialist. Whether you're an experienced publisher or brand new, efficiently publishing eCTD submissions can be challenging, especially if you're a smaller pharmaceutical or biotechnology organizations with limited resources and regulatory professionals headcount. Therefore, the utmost efficiency in publishing your eCTD submission is essential as your regulatory department races to meet deadline and deliver treatments to patients. With Certara's Global Submit Publish eCTD software, you greatly reduce the number of steps of your regulatory professionals must perform to arrive at a validated high-quality output. The second, Global Submit Validate, assesses the technical validity of your regulatory submissions and eliminate the risk of technical rejection. Global Submit Validate is a web-based application that checks for over 200 errors conditions of varying severity levels, including 40 plus PDF checks. In fact, Validate has processed over 1.5 million regulatory submissions up to date. Our validation software supports fully automated eCTD submissions and is designed to successfully integrate with all existing eCTD publishing applications. Sponsors using outdated validations softwares are now more vulnerable than ever to technical rejection. If you're most likely regulatory professionals like me, you're spending your time meeting on your organization's goals on expediting its development to market by filling regulatory submissions as fast as accurately as possible. Not to mention avoiding major mistakes that push back submissions date and staying on budget. The trouble is, without the right eCTD viewing software in place, simple yet critical review tasks can cause delays, increasing your risk of rejection, costs, and user frustration. With Global Submit Web Review is a cloud-based eCTD viewer that facilitates an efficient and dynamic regulatory review of your electronic submission process through web-hosted access for all your global activities. Here are what to look for. At Advaxis Incorporated on their clinical pipelines that I believe we help progress. In the first half of 2023, next year, they will be finishing parts B and C of their studies on non-small cell lung cancer treatments and dose levels of 1-2 on phase 1 study in prostate cancer. So things are shaping up great at Advaxis with these anticipating programs. On our second to the last agenda on this webinar, we will be talking about what are the benefits of partnering with regulatory submission specialist experts with Certara Regulatory Operations Specialists. We've been teaming up with them since February 2015 even though regulatory operations specialist department started not only until 2019 here at Makati, Philippines. And in the last 7 years, they have been approved with their 6 applications. That all includes IND, with efficiency in multiple maintenance submissions, including protocol amendments, safety reports, and annual reports. We're almost done with this webinar, and now conclude that working as a regulatory specialist taught me so much, not only in a matter of career growth, but I've realized that we're doing important work here. That, hey, we're not just operators that putting documents in the machine, but we enrich lives of the people that need certain medicines or submissions for them to cure what they've been struggling with. So with that, I will close this webinar with 4 main things that I suggest highlight what Certara regulatory operations do their best. We got the bandwidths. We got the team bandwidths that can really handle pressure and heavy workload, adding global submit softwares that help us minimize the stress of publishing work. And with the help of our colleagues at US and Europe, we become experts at what we do.
Great. Thank you so much, Jerome. We'd love to have our audience submit their questions to Jerome through the chat.
We will now open the floor to questions.
Someone wants to know, is a dossier planner provided to publishers to build the submission?
That's a good question. I would like to take a minute to think about it, and I will get to you as soon as possible.
Great. Someone says that we have more than 40 PDF checks. Can you talk about a few that are the most critical?
I'm sorry? Come again?
Someone says you talked about that we had for this the case study that we had more than 40 PDF checks. Could you tell us about a few that are the most critical?
Oh yes, actually, it's in the reference literature section.
Great. So we've got
yes.
Sorry,
it is most critical. Yeah, it is the most critical, I think, because it comes a lot actually, and then sometimes the most not critical, I think, for I guess, is the table of contents linking.
Okay, great. Thank you. And we've got for folks, Jerome's mentioned at the end of the slides, we've got a reference. Maybe we can point folks to that. We can advance to that slide, Jerome. We've got a reference slide where we share some of the references, and that might help help folks out. So so someone is asking about Latin American countries like Brazil or Colombia that mostly follow eCTD, but have specific sections mainly for drug substance. What are your recommendations for those regions for having efficient publishing?
So I think in the last 2 years for Latin America, my recommendations is to have a really dedicated team like us at Certara. Because, for example, if you have we've been established, like, for example, here at the slide that I'm showing, we've published almost 33 million since 2018. So this is not to mention that in 2019, we've only established the regulatory operations department here in the Philippines. So I recommend to really have a dedicated team when it comes to selecting your vendors to be efficient in publishing.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. So someone has a question about the tools that you use to project manage your ECD submission, and if you have any thoughts about that.
What tools and how do you project manage eCTD submissions? I mean, interesting that sometimes we use Excel, sometimes we use smart sheet, sometimes most of the time we use Word document files. So I think using the PDF file is the most dynamic of them all.
Great, thank you. Do you have any recommendations for drug developers on how far in advance in their program they should engage an eCTD vendor?
It's never easy to conceptualize how you will meet an impending timeline with so many moving parts, as is the case for your eCTD submission. When selecting a vendor, it is imperative that the vendor can seamlessly move your project forward. So the bottom line is it is always should be moving forward.
Absolutely. Do you have anything else to talk about in regards to content management and eCTD tools that you use?
What content management and eCTD tools do you use for submission? I'm using Excel, Microsoft Excel, and then I'm using most of the times PDF. Sometimes the client provides us Word document files, but most of the times PDF and Excel.
Great. Can you tell us more about the services that Certara offers in terms of regulatory operations?
We at Certara can help you with your IND and marketing applications, lifestyles maintenance submissions, master file, dossier management, US agent services, electronic transmissions, and regulatory affairs.
Excellent. And you showed in one of your earlier slides, Jerome, you showed a table of contents. When do you use that?
For me, I use it on a daily basis. Like, for example, this is like the main tunnel visions of how many bandwidth hours should I be spending, or at least this is like the game plan in a basketball court, or on how you should start to finish it successfully without missing the critical important details like module section number, the titles, file name, page count, operational attribute. But on a client's end, sometimes they didn't provide it. So it's us for regulatory operations to figure out which is like, for example, what should the right lift title is, what is the right page count is, what is the right operational attribute is.
Great. Someone wants to have a question about the Global Submit suite of products. Do you use those for planning, tracking, publishing through archiving of the submission?
We use it to track it and publish it. And archiving, I think, in a matter of deleting a submissions file. Yes, we do archive it.
Excellent. These are some really great questions from our audience. Keep them coming, folks. Can you tell us about why round-the-clock publishing support is an advantage for drug developers?
It's an advantage because, for example, for marketing applications, we recommend that you begin seeking an eCTD vendors for 12 to 18 months. So that's a long time. So we at Certara, we offer around the clock. So it's like a follow the sun support here that I'm showing, that your work is not sleeping at all. So when the day begins at America, we are sleeping at Asia Pacific and vice versa. So it it is always moving, and it is an advantage. And I think not all regulatory companies can offer that. I'm not really sure, but Certara can give you the service around the clock.
Yeah, we're very grateful for our team in the Philippines. Someone wants to know, are the publishers are the regulatory operations specialists at Certara all trained on the different country requirements, which would allow the follow the sun model? How is the training conducted for the remote teams?
Oh, definitely. For example, my senior lead at US, he gets to transmit submission applications on EMA, which us here at the Philippines didn't get to or train because we are mostly transmitting in the FDA, which is in the US. So for us, we beginning to train on how to transmit at Europe. So we will get there, and we're still learning and we're still growing here at regulatory operations in the Philippines.
Excellent. I think that looks to be the end of our questions from the audience. I'd like to thank our speaker, Jerome Perez, my colleague, and I'd like to thank RAPS for hosting us in this webinar, and thank you to the audience for their attention and time today. I'm going to hand it back over to Robin to close us out.